on both of these. Let's see. Oh, okay. Excellent. How excellent is it really? Alright, I see the non-enclosed horse. That's just amazing. And this one is also working. Cool. And that's working well. Nice. Nice. Alright. I guess that officially starts this weird streaming lag. Let's see. Test. Alright, it shows up in this chat and it shows up in this chat as well. Cool, the multi-stream tool is working. I love it. It would be cool if it would differentiate between the two, but it's fine. Who cares? Who cares? The chat's on screen, true, but I'm not sure if that's a reasonable thing to... Can I have this? I guess I could... I'm a bit sketched out by that. I have not thought about adding the chat to the order. I honestly just wanted it a bare bones thing. Honestly, it's probably a smart idea if I'm probably doing this kind of stuff over the next week, at least 2 more times. And I will look to have the chat on the screen properly by then. Did my stuff get posted? Why is it only there? I wanted to post it on the Europe Hub. Okay, it's also there. Fine. Coolio, coolio. Stuff seems to be working just fine. Alright. Now I can just... I don't think I need to post anything more, honestly. I'm just gonna sit here. In case... Lydia, in case you are wondering, this stream, like I'm starting a stream. It's already live on Twitch and YouTube as well. I'm muted, or like I'm deafened myself in Discord, so you can hear me, but I cannot hear anyone. So if you want to chat to me, you can either chat in one of those Twitch or YouTube ones, or in the chat box of the Vault Retreat thing. Both work fine. I will try to keep an eye on all of them. Okay. I don't know. Now I guess we just wait and see if people join and want to ask me questions about anything specifically. Or maybe make a sound and I can also unmute myself and mute you, or like unmute you. And while we wait, I'm just gonna play this fucking... I'm gonna enclose these horses, I guess. Alright. Swearing, hooked on life 6-7. 6-7, dude. For real. Actually, this is... What is the... Oh, it would be cool if they had, like, weekday. And then it would be 6-7. It's not funny. And yes, I swear, I will not be silenced. I will not let myself be silenced. Alright, so how do we enclose this horse? Why can I not place stuff on the bees? It's so sad. There is no way I can get all of these right. I have 3 blocks left. Gay pride? Hell yeah. Real? Real and honest. Okay, I already... Can I... Maybe with so many more blocks. $23. Alright, let's reset. I mean, there's no way this is a good way to go about it. Enclosing these horses. You can send the chat. Oh yeah, true. If you want the YouTube link. Maybe I should have a bot actually post stuff in the chat, but this is a bare bones thing for the time being. Because I don't see a reason to want to go too professional. Copy link. Let's see, does that work? Hell yeah. Seems to be working just fine. And it comes into both chats. It's cool. This unifying chats is very helpful. Alright, there's surely a way to make this a better enclosure. I mean, this is technically better, but that seems like a weak optimization, especially if this is the same score as I had when I go up. So surely there's something I'm missing. Can I have the golden apple and exclude? What is this emoji? Why is it called Gar? I do not know. That's Google emotes for you. I do not know everything. But surely there is a reason for it. If you have suggestions of like what to do while I wait for, if people want to have any specific questions about stuff to begin with, just should suggest stuff. I'm open ears. I'm all open. This is also 31. Removing those bottom bees would be an improvement. You mean like this? That's true. You are right. This can go higher. As a board member of Vault, how many hours a week will you dedicate to visiting Israel? All of them. Every single day. Surely I will please our overlords. Silly. Also, I start, like, this is a very public space, right? Like, I can use and mention the stuff that I'm Vault member and whatnot, but I'm not, like, I didn't get the official okay from, like, Vault Communications, so I don't think I should talk too much about internal affairs. This is more about a general vibe thing, I guess. Also, don't go too edgy, Generalis. Because this is still public. Even if we know it's funny, haha. Should I just submit this? This seems like a pretty optimized solution. Maybe you should not watch the questionable Instagram reel content. That does sound like a pretty... I'm gonna submit this. Video where, hey, we got the perfect score. Cool, cool. That's a lot more golden apples. What game is this? This is enclosed.horse. It's in the title. Where the goal of the game is to enclose the horse. Like, very easy. Build a pen to enclose the horse, but think carefully about the walls, because every... Like, there's different versions. Some versions, the walls cost points. Having the golden apples inside the enclosure is good. Not having it is bad. Bees are negatives. It's very easy. Fortnite duo with Frank Swam. I doubt. He's not that old. Maybe he'd be down for that. Would you dare play slow roads? I mean, I guess I could put on slow roads. Don't they even have a built-in radio to have like chill beats to relax too? This is gonna be way too expensive. No, it doesn't. Dang it. Unfortunate. Auto drive mode. I'm not sure if that makes sense. I guess maybe. How do I optimize this? I feel like this apple is a must-have. Maybe that apple is not. Minus 64. That sounds not correct. Sounds like a bad score. What's the smallest room I can create to begin with? This. Minus. This is a better score than my attempt. It would be very funny if this was the actual solution. This is like not good. This can't be a good choice to go for. These bees just cost way too much. Inefficient. Oh wait, what if I go below? I don't even have enough. I don't think this is gonna be easy to solve for me. Streamlet hooked on damn live. Wow, that sounds like a real legit thing. Same as the YouTube chatter, more or less. This person just created their account. Who are you? It's Lydia? Oh, okay. Hi there, Lydia. I was like, that seems a bit suspicious. That was not what I wanted to click. Yes, we know. We all love Electra. Very cool. That was not my plan, though. I mean, I could let that run. It's Lydia. Yes, I love platypus. Platypus are the greatest animal, honestly. I don't care they're not European. I have no idea how you would optimize this. Harbor seal sweeps. Nah. I mean, dude, platypus are, every time you think you know something, or like you know them good enough, there's more to them. It's insane, honestly. They are an enigma of like every natural science ever. I'm just gonna submit this. Yeah, this is shit. What is the optimal solution? What? 1,000? Okay, I mean, minus 44 is not the... Oh, wait, okay, the score was at the bottom. I was like, okay, there's no way this is up 1,000 points. Who is Kiropsy here? Kiropsy is just a random person from the internet. Actually, like a friend of mine, basically. You do not need to be concerned about Chiropsy. Again, since this stream is open to anyone can join. Let's see, what is this puzzle? That's a lot of bees. What the fuck? I mean, this seems like just maths to do at the... Because, like... Alright, you can't block off... I don't want to count, I'm just gonna experiment. Alright, negative a lot. Oh, I see. So you definitely block off that. Wait, yeah. Block off these. That's 5. So this is positive, that's good. Wait, this isn't Vault Code. I can be unrestrained. Technically speaking, it's a... So, I set this up on my own using my Vault email stuff. So basically, this is not official Vault, but it's very close to Vault to the degree that as members we should fucking watch ourselves. Basically. SMH. Fuck, I'm sorry. Vault adjacent. Yes, exactly. We are close enough to cause issues and make people be mad if we do something uncouth. Let's say. I wonder, does this make a difference? Not really, right? It's still... Wait, it does make it. Why does it make it? Oh, because these are extra. Yeah, okay, that's fair. No, wait, what? Why is this 5? And this is 3. Where do I get 2 more points from? From just one tile? I thought a tile is 1. I thought a single tile is worth 1. Why am I getting 2 extra points? Whatever. I think this is probably the best. Not even close. Alright. Do we just have no bees at all? This is horrid. Move the bottom walls down. Oh, dude, I'm a... Yeah, that was the optimal. No, it wasn't. That's not even the optimal solution. I'm going uncouth right now. I'm sorry. I'm sorry I'm setting... I did things wrongly. Okay, so this is 11. How can... Ooh. Think diagonally. Wait, I haven't used... What? Huh? 25? Oh yeah, 25 is the max. Dude. Brain power, right? Yeah, you can only submit once. I done goofed. I fucked up. It's alright though. You can try the couples problem. Alright. You're mid. Holy shit, you can't say that. I will call Vault Police on you. Alright, definitely block off these. I have 2 more. So I could have just this. But that does not sound like an optimal way. This is worth it. That's -5, right. So even if I do it like that, it's still better. I could move this here, I have 1 more tile open. And close these, that's not good. So that's 20 points. That's minus 20. How much do I get? I lose 1 if I do that. That's interesting. Ban police. Yeah, true. I mean, we do have the Integrity Commission. So, watch out. Nah. What? How do I optimize this more? Is it? Like, surely it's not something silly like that again. They wouldn't pull the same trick twice, right? How should I got it for allowing more of these? 24. My best is 27. Which was this? Maybe this is the best. Ooh, what? What if... What if... There's no way, right? I can't block this off with 1 more. Plus 10. That's not worth it. Yeah. Lydia, do you have any suggestions or questions about me? About me or my stances or anything? Like, honestly, the main point was to just talk about whatever is on my mind, either while playing something like this or chess, or doing like political compass tests or something like that, where you kind of just get asked questions about stances. Ironically, will you fix Volt Tech? The issue is, I'm not a tech guy, but I do recognize when tech doesn't work. So, for example, I already said it before that our current Halo stuff is fine as an information repository, basically. But I am in big support of our local teams getting the support to like set up their own like Mattermost server or Matrix servers or whatever. Because I think one of the biggest issues on Halo is that it being a structure of comments, of like making a post and commenting on it and other people comment on those, they are just very much, let's say, volatile to explode into unproductive discussion. Because unlike a rolling chat like on Discord or elsewhere, you don't actually get to be face to face, or I guess chatbox to chatbox, with someone who's disagreeing with you. And so I think if we want better communication, something like Mattermost is needed on a local level, but also European one. And one of the things that I also dislike is that a lot of the local teams kind of have to like just use what they're used to, because, you know, not every little city or little town has tech people at hand who can set up a Mattermost server for the little town. So they just end up relying on like WhatsApp and stuff like that. And I really do think we should incentivize our local teams to move away from at least WhatsApp, if not most of the chat boxes that work on US or yeah, okay, US like proprietary software. So yeah, moving away from that is just a lot of work that I don't think the Euroboard can enforce. Like, all the Euroboard can do is offer the things. For example, Halo exists. The fact that people don't want to use Halo because it's not addressing the things that they need, which is like quick communication and fluid exchange of like information and just talking. Um, that's, you can't do more than offer what we have, right? As a tech guy, I have no hope that can ever be solved. I don't think it's that grim. Like, there's no way it's that bad. Especially, like, the German chapter, for example, the one of the biggest German chapters, the ones in NRW, North Rhine-Westphalia, they already have their, like, Mattermost or Matrix, I don't actually know which one is this, like, set up, but they do it on their own. So they kind of rely on the volunteers to keep it up as well. And the fact that it can work just shows that if it can work there, it should also be able to work on all of the other regions. And I think the Eurobird and the Euroboard and the European level should just be under like helping the Euro tech side more to bring the technology to the little regional things. Because, like, what else can you do? Even if you had an official, even if you had a completely self-made chat app just for Volters, it's not a given that the Volters will actually download it and use it over the one that they already use every day, which is usually WhatsApp or Signal. So the best you can do is to offer the tools, which the Euroboard already does, but I think they can get more support, or maybe even more finance, depending on how to look at it. Like I said, all of these more detailed stuff is something that you would look into more once you're actually in the position, because I feel like electing someone is basically electing someone to learn everything that you don't have to want to deal with yourself. And I'm willing to do a lot of learning. I mean, even my Democrats are pro-local chapter using Signal. I mean, the non-tech people hold the checkbook, yeah. Also, what do you mean, my Democrat abroad? What do you mean with your Democrats abroad local chapters? Oh. The US Democratic Party? I did not know that. So, like, in Europe, there's a US Democratic Party. Okay, I did not know that. What are they doing here? It sounds accusatory more than I wanted it to sound. Oh, like people with American citizenship to vote from overseas? Is that their main goal? Ah, I see. Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. Especially considering how I'm sure a lot of people moved away after Trump, and those are the people who would vote against him. Alright, this is one. Let's go the other way. 66. Yes, you were right. You are a smart one. But yeah, like going back to the tech talk about the information exchange. I think we really, really, really need to be more tech involved, and because like if we want to be actually a like pan-European movement, we have to have the technology there. I think the people who, for example, I think I mentioned that on the Discord as well. There were people who were arguing about the voting digitally for the GA being like, oh my god, we can't trust this because what if like trust reasons basically for the around the tech and the fact that if you have better tech that can do stuff automatically, you can also have better voting methods which are less transparent because they're more complicated inherently, and arguing that that's something that we shouldn't do. I feel like that is completely against the spirit of Vault, because not only do we want to be more digital, it's needed if you want to have a better and proper democracy across a whole continent. The fact that the US system sucks is partly because they can't or weren't able to set up a more digital way without having the oligarchs interfere, of course, over there by now. But like without that, I don't think there is any reason to even believe that a better democratic process is possible. Like if you want to be democratic to a degree where you always can look back on the exact paperwork and whatnot, you will have to just go back to city-states and no other higher region apart from just filtering the democratic process upwards, which is just not as accurate of a representation of the people's will. That's why Discorders need a better represent in the Vault bodies, ironically. I don't think it's just Discord people. But I think I actually kind of wonder what exactly differentiates Vaulters who are on the Discord, who aren't on the Discord, and who are on the Discord but aren't active on it, for example. I don't think there is much difference. I think it's basically random if people are actually part of the Discord group and actively engaging with it or not. This can be better. And so the question, like the Discord interface for communication and idea exchange and whatnot is just incredibly. I think for maybe that's something about like when you grew up on the internet, because back when the internet came out, it was all like forum posts, right, which were a lot more similar to Facebook kind of stuff, where you just post a statement or a comment and it's there for the time being and people respond to it by commenting on it over and over again. Whereas more modern stuff, where the internet wasn't as slow, just constantly flowing discussion, is a lot more natural feeling to a lot of people, I think. And I think this flow and actual recognition of having someone in front of you who isn't just a caricature of what they're posted, of what they've posted, helps a lot to reduce the animosity between like parties in discussions. Craziest thing to me is that very super high names aren't even on Halo. Like, yeah, that's also something I really don't understand. Like, I can understand not wanting to be on Halo because you don't like the structure of a Facebook-like platform, but that's very different from not even ever doing anything on there. Like, if you make a decision or if you have something important that happened in your chapter, making a post on the internal platform to discuss things in is like the minimum, I would assume so. So I really don't understand that. But then again, the Halo decision was a Euro board one. I don't know how much the national chapters went along with it or just said, okay, whatever, we don't really care. That vote was before my time, so I don't have any insight on that actually. But yeah, there's like stuff to improve upon, let's say like that. I think I found an optimization I could try. I need one more block. Where can I save one more block? Surely there's a way to get one more block from somewhere. If I lose the cherry, it was worse. This looks promising. Also, were you in the call on I think the call on Thursday about the candidates showcasing their cooperation and like quick presentation skills? I don't remember what question it was exactly, but one of the teams mentioned about, hey, just post it on social media. Like, there's no reason to make it a decision. Like, especially about, I feel like one of the reasons why I wanted to have this be I was on it for like 20 minutes at the end after being reminded it was a thing. Fair enough. Fair enough. But like one of the points that one of the teams brought up by one of the questions, I think that was about the communication aspect, or like one of the communication questions was, let's just post on social media, like everything. I feel like a lot of vaulters are scared to be public in that sense. And I don't really get it. Like, it's not like we're gonna post our... Like, even if some... Like, what's the worst that can happen if you just have everything public? People misinterpret stuff, sure. But that can be fixed by being public and, like, responding to stuff and, you know, not having slow response times. One thing could be that actual nefarious opposition could look at, like, the discussion about strategy of Vault and then actively work to undermine that. If we were to, for example, hey, we want to build up more social media presence, and some nefarious actor, I don't know, like, starts to influence the Vault search term on Instagram or whatever. But at that point, or like for stuff like this, I would argue that if they want to get that info, they could easily get it, even if we aren't already public with it. We already had leaks, so like even if people who are a part of the party aren't super happy, they can leak stuff regardless. So it doesn't really matter that it has been private or public. When it comes to, of course, personal data, that's a completely different story. Like when there is internal struggles and someone is being accused of something, that should be kept private and not public and turned into like YouTube drama kind of shit. I think that's fairly obvious to most people. But I think that's also not too hard to keep in check. You just have to be sure about when you talk in public that it's always about, that it doesn't get personal. You know, one of the mantras of like hard on the topic and soft to the people, or I don't know, it's like a German saying. Hart in der Sache, weich an der Person. I don't know. I have the same sense. You can't be a politician and then hide from the people. You can hide your breakfast or your kids or your home, your court, but you shouldn't hide the paper, the work happening in the party. Exactly. Like, I'm a big proponent of literally just having a glass castle kind of approach. Like, sure, there are people in positions of deciding power and whatnot, but they're doing it in a very well lit, visible like situation. Also, I'm gonna submit this. Hell yeah, best score. There is security concerns, but honestly, we are not in a position to direct a military at the moment. I don't think we should have that big of a concern of those kind of reaches. Some people worry about the thing I mentioned earlier about the misrepresentation of, like, if you just put facts on the table without explaining them further, people who do not have the knowledge to like read through dense legal papers or whatnot can read something and interpret it a way that it isn't. But that is not something that like we should have to worry about or focus on. I'm very much in favor of the, I don't know, I think I linked it to you. There was a video that I linked when the discussion about like talking to the voters, to the average voter being an idiot or whatever. Where I said, actually, I don't think that is the case, because something that I got from a bunch of like people who teach and like science educators and whatnot, is that people are not stupid. And you should overestimate their intelligence. What you should underestimate is their vocabulary. And I think you can reach so many more people than you actually realize if you're just putting in the time and not treating them like, oh, this is higher math, so I'm gonna cut it down for you to dumb it down so you can understand it. I don't think that's necessary. I think you can go into the nitty-gritty detail. And the people who care about it will look into it. The people who don't care about it will not care about it even if it was secret or like not shown at all. Yeah, so I really don't see a reason not to go just full on glasshouse kind of approach. Another thing about this is also when you consider the responsibility. Like, if you, in a democratic process, if you vote for someone and they get elected, the moment they are in their position, technically speaking, they only care about you in the sense that they want you to vote for them again next time. Which is one of the arguments I think works very much in favor of this rolling democracy system of like, we have just a database of everyone's preferences on a certain thing, and they can update it whenever there is no legal period or like a voting period or whatever. Because if you make the decision of voting for someone, you're basically asking them to put, you have to ask them to put their full trust into you. Because after they've done that, in theory, there is nothing that stops you from not respecting what they actually cared for, which is, you know, what we see in every political system where people, presidents and whatnot, promise something and actively don't do that. And even then, like, even in cases where they want to do that, they can't, and then they've tried to explain it instead of just being honest about, we can't because I don't have enough support elsewhere or whatever else. That, which is usually the case, actually, which is very interesting of like how convoluted political systems get. But yeah, like, this is one of the aspects of like not responsibility, accountability. if you vote for someone, you're kind of, how do you describe this? For example, I would argue that if you vote for me, I don't want you to vote for me because you think that I will do everything exactly as you want. I think you should vote for me if you think that I am a person who you think is making good decisions that you can understand, or that I could explain to you, and like similar reasoning patterns. I don't think if you vote for a politician that you have that, like, there's a reason that in ancient Rome there was no voting by popular vote, but just randomized lots. I think I'm just rambling on. Also, oh yeah, I already submitted this. I'm stupid. What is here? Someone messaged that they looked at the YouTube chat, but there is no way to comment. That's not right. Now it's possible to comment. Ah, okay. Hello, Sal. I assume you're Sandra, right? I just looked at the Halo post, so funny. Yes. We're using, I can type. Yeah, I think it was probably something about having to have a YouTube account, but it does. It's fine as long as they're able to listen, and like I even offered in my post about my candidacy as a non-executive president. I made a YouTube or a Google link for people who don't have time to like, or don't want to write emails, or don't have time to hop onto a live stream, because live streams are time dependent. I have an option on my Google page where people can make appointments if they actually just want to have a one-on-one telephone call, for example. I have not yet had anyone use that option, but it's there, and I will mention that whenever I notice that this person wants more contact options and the ones I offered aren't enough. Yes. Anyway, let's go to the next puzzle. Also, if someone wants to play chess or something, I'm down for that. I am not good at chess, but I'm down to play. Alright. More puzzles. Simple puzzles. Alright, this is not working. That's probably not the solution. That would be way too easy. Mm-hmm. Alright. Surely there's a way to optimize this better. Go just there. 35. That's not too bad. If there are any questions you want to ask, feel free. If you have suggestions about what to do on the stream, I'm also open for that. Like, I plan on doing the political compass test later on because that's just a go-to standard thing. Oh, that's something I could talk about. You know how we have a Vault like onboarding process where we just hope that the people in the onboarding process in one talk can figure out if a person is actually Vault adjacent or like a good fit for Vault. I really think we should, using more data collections, just having more questionnaires out there, try to create a test that can actually identify how close the average Vaulter sentiment is and if that person fits within a certain region. And I'm sure we have the people who can do that stuff and the analysis, because I do not think it's impossible, especially because Vault is a big party, but it's not like terabytes of data, right? I'm pretty sure there's ways to collect that data in a manner that can be worked with even still by volunteers, especially if we say that, hey, this data collection, sure, we can anonymize it, but then like have it be open and free, and like any Vaulter can do their own analysis on the data, which is one of the things I think for a digital voting process would be necessary regardless. Then again, there's a lot of other issues, mostly legal ones, which are just a pain in the butt and not quote-unquote actual issues of like feasibility about digital voting stuff. I think this is good. I'm just gonna submit this. Hey, that was easy. And there is no harder test either. Most crucial aspect to making internal things public is that people will take what they see publicly and apply it to their assumption of what is happening internally. Most crucial aspect to making internal things public is that people will take what they see publicly and apply it to their assumptions of what is happening internally. So it has to be make accurate. I'm not entirely sure I understand what you mean. Do you mean that if we go very public and a lot of the internal structures are just done on the public place, public influence, public whatever, that there is less of an incentive of potential voters looking at things that seek through to the public and then have to extrapolate from this limited data of what the internal structure actually looks like? I checked they will be seen as dead if they don't post, even if there's 10 people grinding inside. Yeah, okay, that's I think that's a different thing though, because I think that one is more publicity rather than like things actually being public. Because there's a difference between people working internally and just not bothering to post it outside, or people working internally and they can't even post it outside or they don't want to. I think there's a difference there. Because I think the publicity stuff is honestly a quote-unquote easy thing to fix. It just requires dedication to actually keep stuff up to date and post it. Yeah, okay, that's also true. I mean, and that's what the talk about the candidate discussion from Thursday was talking about, when you just say, hey, if there was a generic political post about, hey, we at Volt stand for this and that's an official like Instagram post, and then not sharing, oh, today we had this discussion and we had a beer here and there or whatever. I think that also makes it a bit more approachable, because one of the things I like about Volt is the fact that we want, and I really have to emphasize this, and we should stick to being a small local grassroots thing, and the big stage of where everything is sanitized through a filter of, is this appropriate, is this can this misconstrue it or whatever else. That's just something that happens when you professionalize it, and when you professionalize politics, you disincentivize the grassroots to actually stick around. So honestly, I wish for Volt to be a bit more loose about what exactly they post, or like worrying too much about phrasing or stuff like that. Yes, that's important, but I think we should not focus on that, because that's what every party focuses on, and that's why every party seems the same to some people. Obviously there are not, but like, the professionalism does not have to go hand in hand with the sanitization. Like, I'm a big proponent of acknowledging that humans are political animals, and animals are not particularly known to be clean. Yes. Stop. I won't stop. What is this, a threat? Right, this is silly. This portal does nothing. This is just there. I have 10 blocks. Alright. So this seems like an obvious answer. I mean, is it just this? Oh, okay, we're missing one. I see the question now. How to merge these things. I wonder if this needs to be cut in half, because there's just no way. Like, everything I remove here is gonna cause issues later on. Surely there's a way here. No way it's the top I have to save more on. Oh, maybe that's why this one becomes a more interesting aspect. Because I could decide to have two. Impossible puzzle. What am I missing? If you I can have this, and then I can save this one, and I could move these one further down, but that's not compensating. Ooh, what if you no, that doesn't make sense. Surely there's a way to have this better. How is this so hard? Also, if you have suggestions of what to talk about, shoot ahead. Like general questions or anything, honestly. I do not trust this. Oui. Very chiptune. Let's keep it like that. It's not too bad, I think. I can save one more here if I just cut all of these like this. I don't believe it. It was the best solution. Okay, I'm surprised. I'm actively surprised. This is never worth it. Stop underscore. 61. It's not too bad. I don't think I can optimize this more than this, honestly. If it's similar to the other puzzle. Like if I expand by 2, the red ones cost 4 or 6 points to build even. Like unless... This is the same value? That's crazy. With this, it's the best. Okay, I'm happy with that. I'm gonna switch over to something that is a bit more conversation inducing, which is going over political compass stuff, because that's fun. Why can I not change my layout? Why must you be like this? Oh well. The classical. Oh my god, it's so bright. Look how bright this is. Ugh. Is there no dark version? I don't think there is. Alright, take the test. Before taking the test, please note this isn't the servers. Yes. We all know the test. I'm just gonna do it in English because international. No less how you... Okay. Page 1 of 6. How... Just a few propositions to start with concerning, no less, how you see the country and the world. If economic globalization is inevitable, it should primarily serve humanity rather than the interest of transnational cooperation. Strongly agree. I'd always support my country whether it was right or wrong. Strongly disagree. I would like to move past the idea of countries. If no one chooses their country of birth, it's foolish to be proud of it. I somewhat agree. Because while you have no choice of like being born in a certain region or not, the way of how you live in that society is more indicative of or like how you view your society can be something to be proud of, which in turn can also make the certain aspects of a country which you think are agreeable through, not just because you were born there, but because you actually can rationalize to a position why this is good or why the circumstances in that country are good. You can be proud that that is an attitude that the people around me also support, for example. For example, I think it's very good to be proud that LGBTQ rights in Europe have been going up. I think that's something that should not be undermined by saying, oh, well, you're just, you didn't do anything about this specifically, there's no reason to be proud of that. I think that's faulty comparisons in some sense. Yeah. Our race has many superior qualities compared to others. Yeah, okay, sure. Sure thing, buddy. The enemy of my enemy is my friend. I'm not sure if I strongly disagree or disagree. I think staying a friend is a strong word, especially when it's in a political context. So probably strongly disagree. Because, you know, it just does not make sense. Like, plenty of people hate each other for reasons that do not necessarily make you and the other one your friend or friends to each other. Yes. Military action that defies international law is sometimes justified. You know, two things. First of all, I'm gonna get up and get some water. And then you can ponder that question for a bit longer. I think this is an incredibly loaded question. And on top of that, I'm not someone who thinks that laws are holy or something like that. So I would defy or like question, like, this is not going into the details. I'm pretty sure there are international laws that many, or at least some people, would even disagree with. So, for example, the abduction of Maduro from Trump is obviously a breaching of international law. And considering the target, probably also an unjustified one. If that was done to Putin or some other active warmongering leader of the world, many would say that that is more justified, even though it goes against international law. I don't think a law is. I don't really think that the law has a say in how justified anything is, because I feel like justified is implying a more moral aspect, and law is not about morals per se. They should be, but they aren't. So this question can go either way, and my current sentiment is that is an agree, I think. Not to mention that international law itself is already kind of useless. As I told you, there was literally constantly being stuff against international law and nothing ever happens. So like, why should we restrain ourselves if something that we think is unjustifiable is happening? you know, this is just, I might even go to strongly agree, actually. There's a difference between upholding international law as something that you value out of virtue and your true belief that this is a good axiom to utilize for every, like in every instance, or just saying, well, it's in the law book, so the law book says I can do it. There's a infusion of information entertainment. There's implies some sort of dichotomy between information and entertainment. I think information can be entertainment, so I would disagree. I don't think it's worrying. The worrying stuff is that information actually isn't used to entertain. So yeah, strongly disagree. Now, the economy. We're talking attitudes here, not the FTS index. People are ultimately divided more by class than by nationality. Strongly agree. I think if anyone is saying otherwise, I'm not sure Volt is the right party for you. The whole point of Volt is that nationalities exist and they differ, but they are not dividing us. Class, in contrary, like, you've most likely never met a person from the upper echelons of high society, like, ever. Controlling inflation is more important than controlling unemployment. I am not sure how much importance I would give one over the other. I'd only say agree. There are a lot of national divides as well. That's true. There are national divides. But I think when it comes down to, for example, like the whole, like the big questions about all of the German-speaking European countries, the DACH region, German, Switzerland and Austria, they are divided in nationality. Like, think Greeks and Turks. Yeah, but that's my point. I think there's a point to be made that even the differences there are superficial at most, that get amplified by a nationalistic, we have to be the best kind of viewpoint. There are cultural differences as well, of course, but there are cultural differences between every single person and the next one over. If you want to go for those kind of differences and use those differences to analyze some kind of lines or dividing lines in society, I think you're just gonna run into infinite, like, every person is their own thing, which, you know, is true, but that's not a useful thing to gauge a split in society. If you go by class, in the sense of, like, honestly, I don't even think it matters much how you define class. There's many ways you can define class in a coherent way. There's many ways you do it incoherently, but that's also true for nationality. But for example, one of the differences that I saw is that the way someone makes their living, in the sense that most people do an activity and get some sort of reward or resources from that activity, and other people have resources and manipulate those resources to gain more resources. Those are different class of people that have a somewhat like, people can work enough to get enough resources to get into that aspect where they have, let's say, assets, for lack of knowing the right terminology from my end. But on the ends of someone who only ever worked for their money or for their for their financial growth or baseline security, and for someone who only manages the resources they already own, that's not just a difference of like degree, that's a difference of type, of proper type. Like, you can say Greeks are less conservative than Turks in this aspect and on this aspect and whatever, but those are all matters of degree. that is what I explained by class is a concrete difference of type. Like they're fundamentally not opposed. Like I said, you can do both, but there is clearly a tipping point rather than the sliding scale of let's say how conservative a country is, or how democratically inclined it is, or whatever else you want to use as a national identity divider, indicator, whatever you call it. Controlling inflation is more important than controlling unemployment. It depends a lot, because unemployment in our current economic system is directly connected to like how good you're living to some degree. People who are unemployed usually have a lesser quality of life because they just don't have the resources to have a better quality of life. And inflation mostly is, I think this is a good dichotomy or like a parallel to draw between these two questions. Controlling inflation is mostly something that is more class relevant between the divide. Employment, the same, but on the other end. Like the person in the class who gets their growth from moving their assets does not care about employment rate, they care about inflation, because a lot of their assets is gonna be in valuables, which inflation depend upon. The employment, in theory, is disconnected from the actual value of money if you're just getting a paycheck. In that sense, I think I'm more on the side of the employment being more important, or the unemployment being more important. But like I said, I think this situation, or like dichotomy thinking, is not really a real one in that sense. So I would probably say disagree and care more about employment. I'm not quite sure. Honestly, this is about something I would like to talk about with Electra, because as far as I understood, she went into computer science and switched to economy and was mostly interested in mechanics of inflation. So that was something that I would really like to have a talk about with her. I'm sure I could learn a lot from her. Because corporations cannot be trusted to voluntarily protect the environment, they require regulations. Strongly agree. Nothing much else to be said. If the concept of a corporation being solely profit driven, they will not care about anything other than their profit, and therefore require regulations. How to address this in a different way, philosophy. From each according to his ability to each according to their needs is a fundamentally good idea. I don't think there is not much to be said about this. That's not true. There is plenty to be said about this. For example, I forgot the name, but there's a philosopher who was very interested in the idea of the myth of meritocracy, in the sense that maybe we shouldn't want a meritocratic society to begin with. His arguments were actually quite profound and went deep into how exactly the psyche of a person would affect not just to say that current societies usually aren't considered truly meritocratic in that sense. And even if they were, that's a status that should be questioned, because it kind of brings with itself a sort of defeatist attitude, in the sense that, well, if society is truly fair and this is where I end up, well, that's just that, right? What else is there for me to do? I just do what I do, and that's it. There's nothing higher to strive for anymore. Yeah, there's also a question about the degrees of ability and need. For example, I'm sure if you ask how much what someone needs in Europe compared to someone in, I don't know, in in China or in rural China, for example, there would be a lot of different levels, and the ability of someone, especially from like all of the like the fact that we have burnout shows that there are abilities that we don't even realize we are strenuing and lead to catastrophic failure in the end. So how are we to decide exactly what one's ability truly is and what really is what someone needs and not just wants? In some sense, I'm softer on the need side, because I would argue, honestly, as long as there is a wish that needs fulfillment, you can't argue that it's not a need, right? You can say it's not a necessary need in the sense of, oh man, I wish I had 200 pounds of cocaine in me right now. It's not a reasonable need to fulfill and go after. But yeah, like it's, languages are imprecise. But yeah, I think I really don't think it's reasonable to you, alright. Are you a blue whale or something? I don't even know. I'm pretty sure 2 pounds of cocaine kill like a bunch of elephants over and over. But yeah, I would go with strongly agree, I'm not so sure. The freer the market, the freer people, we already see that is not the case, so fuck no. It's a sad reflection of our society that something as basic as drinking water is not bottle branded and consumer products. I would argue it's true. I would agree. I'm even tempted to say strongly agree. But there is more to be said about this question, because it's saying something as basic as drinking water. The drinking water, you can find loopholes and excuses of like, oh well, we take the drinking water but we like add minerals, or like we filter it specifically so they are extra sure that there's nothing in there, or whatever else. And then, there's some arguments to be made that it's fine to have it as a consumer product. But for something like pure land, or the fact that we have to consider air pollution as a resource that needs to be like taxed and stuff, that is, I think, is more a reflection or a sad reflection on society, rather than this drinking bottled water argument. So I agree. I weakly agree with the drinking bottle argument. I strongly agree if it was a more fundamental thing like living space. Land shouldn't be a commodity to be bought and sold. That is also a question. I somewhat disagree, but I also think there is no reason, like, you can have commodities. There's lots to be said about this. I feel like that's a sentence you can use on anything. How else would land be allocated? I mean, there's the notion of common land, the alternative for planned land economy. I think that's a false dichotomy you're building up here. Like, there's a difference between people owning land and people being in possession of land. Being a commodity implies it's something that you don't actually need, right? It's something that is bonus to what you already need to survive as a basic. And I think there is more than enough land that anyone could have land without running out of land that can be turned into commodities for people who would want more. But what's needed is, like, many people don't even have that. You do that by having the democratic government buying the land, though. There's something to be said about that the government, or like the people who decided to rule over a land, do not need to buy land as it's inherently theirs. And actually everyone who says that they own a land needs to justify that claim first and foremost. like this can go back to the fundamental principles of like even Marxism, I guess, that common good, which is just is still authoritarian. So back to the Soviet point. The issue is not that it's authoritarian, or the issue is not that how do you say, the stuff that went wrong in or like in most authoritarian countries is that the authority was not legitimate in a sense that we as a democratic people would understand. If for every like, for example, let's say the people of a certain city decided we want to build a connection to the international train station. I think it would be a completely reasonable and arguably just way to say, hey, if you are a owner of property, especially if it's a property that you do not use yourself, or that you only what's the, I don't know the German, the English word, that you lease. For example, you own property, you do not the only thing you proactively do with it is leasing it out to farmers to build or to farm on it, but you still get like big profits out of that, or like a profit out of that. How much of a reason would there be if to say this whole city came together and collectively voted on should this person give up that piece of land that they don't even use themselves, as the farmer are the ones that will carry most of the loss of that, and that would go to the farmers first and foremost, who now have less land to proactively work and create produce for the city. Yeah, but seizing land of the owner without compensation doesn't only. You can have a forced buyout of the land, but that's still a buying and selling. Yeah, but it could happen, but that's not compatible with the principles. The question that I have, when you say you have a forced buyout, how is a forced buyout different from, like, usually when you have a forced buyout, the people who loses the land is compensated way over the value of the property. But in theory, in a democratic process, that could be regulated down to, hey, you get a nominal coin for your good that is now going to be a public utilized thing. In theory, that would still be a forced buyout. It's a matter of degree. It's not a liberal government. It should happen fairly. Well, what's more fair than a collective vote on if this person should be able to keep that property that costs us, I don't know, some nominal number of happiness points or active monetary value for the city or region. That's true. That's a fair counterpoint to make. Yet the question still stands. If, like, that's what democracy, like, how would you resolve a situation like that? Would you say that the whole vote was invalid from the get-go because it already put into question some rights of that person? You could argue that, yeah, sure. I'm not saying that land can't be sold and bought. I'm saying that the justification of selling and buying land needs to be put into some higher authority. And I think that higher authority is not just, well, I owned this land for so and so many years, or like decades or millennia. But maybe that should be renegotiated of a proper, hey, let's ask the people in the region to give their authority. Or just Violence Jesus back in the good old days. I mean, that's the whole memes and joke about you're loitering on my property, or why is it yours? And then they ask the person down, and my forefathers fought on them. Well, and we will fight you for it now. Like, it's a joke and hyperbolic question, but in the end, the luxury, quote unquote, of owning and being safe on land is something that is treated as a privilege in a society, in some sense, which is, there's lots to be like discussed about this, but I do think that land is like one of the most quintessential things that should first and foremost be allocated through a non-market mechanism. That does not mean through violent seizing and fighting over land again, but those are not the two options, or the only two options, of course. But yeah, like I do not see a reason why there should not be, like, I don't see a reason that disputes a justification of, hey, the people living on this land that at the moment are like distributed according to their income of like how much can I buy land. Why should that be the case instead of we all live on this land, we are all neighboring, we are all interacting with each other? The distribution of the land should be done in a more democratic sense. Groceries shouldn't be a commodity to be bought and sold. I mean, that's why we have soup kitchens and stuff, right? Technically speaking, you don't want anyone to hunger for a reason, and there are systems in place to actually turn them into non-commodities. It's just that the commodity of going out and buying whatever you want is a commodity that's so luxurious that no one would want to do it without anymore. I think it's always good to remember that the state we are living in Europe, or like most of the Western world, is a degree of commodity and comfort and luxury that is unheard of. It's still a commodity, but it's not treated as, like, in that sense everything is still a commodity. Like, I think they're getting a bit too off track. Like what is not a commodity? For example, the air you breathe. But why is that not a commodity? And the land you want to sleep on is? Yes, okay. Okay, let me read through this. In economics, a commodity is an economic good, usually a resource, that specifically has full or sustainability fungibility. That is, the market treats instances of the good as equivalent or nearly so, with no regard who produced them. The first question about, if you go with this kind of definition, it's just the first one I found of Wikipedia, is no one produced land, Let's look at commodity in Marxism. Is a good or service part of the activist produced by human labor and offered as a product for general sales in the market. In that sense, your workforce is a commodity, which, you know, I think many people would say, yeah. But yeah, like, land never got created by anyone specifically. Like, especially land, pure land, not housing, not infrastructure, just pure natural land, not something that you actually put effort into to upkeep or something like that. I think that's an important distinction to make. And I think in that sense, I'm more on the agree side, probably. This is a philosophical stance. I think you can talk about that for millennia. It is regrettable that many personal fortunes are made by people who simply manipulate money and contribute nothing to their society. I strongly agree. Protectionism is sometimes necessary in trade. I disagree with that. Like, what does necessary mean? I feel like necessary implies no other alternative, which is not really the case. But, you know, reality is a very open field. The only social responsibility of a company is to be deliver profit for sale. Strongly disagree. This concept is poison to society and humanity. I think it means protection is sometimes the best choice. I'm not even sure. I'm not entirely sure that even then I would say it's an agreeable statement. Because usually when you go for protectionism, you lose out, or like you are like losing out on something that was objectively produced cheaper, better, or in some other way. Like you artificially build up barriers that seem counterproductive to something. If like it could be productive for profit maximization, but that's not something that I care about in my society or economy. I care about some more abstract concept of human flourishing maximization. If only one preaches free trade, the other will be fleecing. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. But I think in that sense, you don't call it protectionism. In that sense, it's more of a tit for tat thing, right? I think when I heard protectionism, I think mostly about, hey, I want to gain an improvement in my economic zone by artificially cutting off the others to some degree. I think we might be overthinking. Yeah, I mean, one thing about, like, I'm not a statistician or someone who takes or collects data a lot, but often they leave questions open like this on purpose, with the assumptions that everyone who reads them will interpret them some way or another, and through just having a statistical like distribution, they sometimes even out. If you overthink them, that's completely fine, but the people who don't overthink them will go in a slightly different direction, and they'll just cancel each other out in some degree. So the rich are are too highly taxed. Yes, that's true. Right, sure. Those with the ability to pay should have access to higher standard of medical care. That's... Oof. I disagree. I wouldn't even say I strongly disagree with the idea behind if you can save a life, there should be nothing preventing you from saving that life. Especially if it's money things. It's not about, oh my god, I can't be in Zimbabwe right now and feed some starving child. But maybe I'm too much on the Peter Singer side on this about, hey, if you're not actively donating everything you have over, you're kind of a bad person. I don't think we should restrict that and just focus on improving the public service. Maybe that's true. I mean, yeah, you can say that it's should have access to higher standard of medical care. I mean, maybe you can say, yeah, they should have the option to go for it. That does not mean that we do not want to reach that with the public version. I think it's still a strong... I mean... I think in the current state, it's alright to say they should be able to. Yeah. But also, like, the thing that I'm getting hung up on a bit is the should aspect specifically. Because in an ideal world, they wouldn't need to, even if they have the money. Because the public thing would already cover everything that one would ever need. So yeah, this question is loaded. This is one of those things where you can go both ways and still have the same opinion. You hate philosophical questions, the practical person. I really like them, but I know when it's time to like stop and get serious. I'm just gonna go with a slight disagree because that was my first instinct. I'm somewhere in the middle, I think. Government should penalize business that misleads. Yes, obviously, if you lie about things or withhold information about the destruction of the global climate because it would cut into your gas sales. Yeah, surely there's nothing bad about that. Dude, I hope Shell and those giants... Dude. Yes. A genuine free market requires restrictions on the ability of predatory multinationals to create monopolies. Yes. I mean, that's one of the first things, even in the basics economic course, that monopolies are still bad, even if they are economically optimal. And this is... No. The free market is such an outdated idea. Now looks at some personal social matter. Abortion, when the woman's life is not threatened, should always be illegal. Disagree. I think there needs to be some restrictions on abortion, but those are more to protect the people and not about forbidding them to aborting. Like, I do not want abortions to be so free and liberal that they become something akin to oh, I'm just gonna get it done by the doctor behind the shed or shit like that, right? But I still think that there needs to be some hurdles intact that it does not get to that state. But, you know, we are way far away from that point where I would have to say, hey, I don't think we should go further. So, like, strongly disagree. All authority should be questioned, always. Strongly agree. Authority is a fickle thing. An eye for an eye and tooth for a tooth makes everyone blind. Disagree. Taxpayers should not be expected to prop up any theaters cannot survive on commercial. I disagree. Because I really think the taxpayer, like, I think we need to... This is an interesting question, I think, because it mixes the economics of resource management and stuff like that into something that I think is a more human-centered thing about culture and society and cohesion. Strongly disagree. My bad. Thank you for catching that. Because I think a taxpayer is not paying for something to make a profit. Like, that's the whole point. Taxes are supposed to pay for things that we want to run regardless on if they bring us profit. That's why, for me, the concept of a public transport system or network that is supposed to throw off profit is kind of alien, because it's supposed to just be there. I don't care how much it costs. It's a social good for the good itself. Yes, you can bring in the resource and economic aspects of organizing it, but that's a different question. Yeah, I think there's something to be said that, there's this concept, or like one of the rules that I heard a bunch of left-wing people mention, that everything that can be considered superfluous, a luxury, an extra, those things can be left to the open market. So like jewelry, diamonds, I don't know, plastic toys, stuff that's not necessary. The question is, okay, what counts as necessary? And I would say that museums and theaters, which are historical relevant information and like are part of a social identity and cohesion, I think those are necessary. So in that sense, I'm sure there's a middle ground to be found of. For example, I'm a huge fan of Arte, which is this publicly funded program between Germany and France. They make great content. It's publicly funded, and they always have a tone of high society kind of stuff to it, but I think that's fine. And I actually think that's a total social good. And I wish we had more of those kind of arrangements all over Europe. I'm sure there are, but like, I think I know Arte as a prime example. Theaters you don't think of? I mean, I think I would expand it to theaters museum in a general sense of like intellectual, artsy, but not producing thing kind of organization or institution. For example, universities. Everyone will say we should support those. They are building us. They are building up our next generation of scientists and whatnot. But, a scientist could be inspired to be a scientist by going to a theater, or a great artist or lyricist or whatever else. The same way he could be inspired by going to a museum. But yeah, I'm just gonna go with strongly disagree on this. I think the arts and culture are... I would be lying if I said just as important as resource stability, but we should not undersell them. Schools should not make classroom attendance compulsory. That's an interesting question, actually. I have not taken this test in like years, so I don't know the question. So there's a concept that is actually something that I could talk about, which I really find interesting. Sometimes I go, or like sometimes I haven't been in like a year again. There's a philosophy club in Munich, and I went there and I had a talk with I think he was Italian, who talked about his worry about the future of education, because we have advanced so far ahead that if we want the people that we have to educate to get to a point where they can actually move a society and scientific advances or whatever else forward, the time they need to get to that point is going to outgrow the time of actively being having a malleable brain to learn all of those things. And so he was very interested in that idea of like, all right, there's gonna be a point where if you want to even just be someone who like, I don't know, there's something very trivial in society of, I don't know, plumbing, you would still need something that, like, in the future you will need the knowledge of someone who is like at the moment some kind of engineering expert, because your tools will get more complicated, the efficiency will get better, you will be more narrowed on your thing, but the depth is still so huge that getting to that point is gonna run into problems of just lifetime of actually being able to learn stuff. So the classical school system of everyone just learns the basics together and then builds upon the stuff they actually want themselves and whatnot. I think there's gonna be a point where we kind of have to rethink that. In that sense, at the moment, I don't think we are at that point now, especially for like elementary stuff. Should not make compulsory. I somewhat disagree, especially because if you don't make it compulsory, you somewhat allow people to actively not integrate into society, because schools are not just a tool of teaching, but I think most importantly is something that is a social thing too, and actually the social aspect needs to be emphasized more. Of like, in schools, kids learn how to behave with each other, right? And if you allow them to just go away, you are allowing them to never learn how to be a human in a society with others. To some degree. Of course you can say it's mine, but you know, I think everyone understands what I mean. All people have their rights, but if it's better for all of us that different sorts of people should keep to their own kind. What question is this? Also, let me change tunes again. Well, this seems interesting. Sure, let's go for that. All people have their rights, but if it's better for all of us that different sorts of people, it is better for all. I strongly disagree. I don't think there is any case where I would disagree, where I would agree with the sentiment. Like, violent people, putting together more violent people in prisons is notoriously not working. The fact that the rich oligarchs and whatnot do not interact with the quote-unquote plebeians of a nation is the reason they have no idea what the fuck's going on. Exchange is always positive, exactly. There's like no aspect ever where this is bad. Good parents sometimes have to spank their children. Strongly disagree. You can really see how this political compass thing is so old and outdated. It's not for children to keep some secrets from their parents. Agree. I would actually... I'm between agree and strongly agree. I think I'm gonna go with agree. If I'll be... Thank you. Thank you. Kiri, you are a savior, because I cannot stick to it. Exactly. Like, for kids to have secrets, that's part of what gives them personality. Like, if a kid was just an open blanket and the parent had vision and therefore influence over everything over the child, you would just take the child away in that sense. Like, they are not their own human. They would only get impressions from the parents. So it's more than normal and actually encouraged. And if the better you are as a parent, the less secrets they will have from you. Exactly. Possession of marijuana for personally should not be criminal offense. Strongly agree. I think modern progressive position. I don't think that's controversial. Especially it's asking for a criminal offense and not about the legalization of it. Because even for the legalization of it, there's still people who discuss about, well, technically we should not want any drugs in society. But, you know. The primary function of schooling should be to equip teachers to find jobs. Strongly disagree. The primary function of schooling is to teach people how to think. And once that's sorted, the job finding aspect falls out naturally. People with serious inheritable diseases should not be allowed to reproduce. Hey, Generalis, want to talk about this? Look at that. But yeah, I disagree. I don't know how strongly disagree. I think anyone who is... I just think I strongly disagree. I think we should entrust people enough when it comes to things like that, especially if they themselves live with like already debilitating disabilities, that they are aware of the risk and would mitigate the chances or whatever. But straight out blocking it is a very different step. And I think we need to have a bit more trust in our fellow men and women and the there's a maths guy I watch sometimes, and he opens his videos sometimes with hello ladies and gentlemen and the classically excluded middle, which I find very funny. Math jokes. The most important thing for children to learn is to accept discipline. Strongly disagree. Discipline is something that's not learned by force, but by positive reinforcement of what discipline can get you. And acceptance is not... Acceptance implies they cannot do anything about it. That's not how you teach that. There are no savages and civilized people. There's all different cultures. I used to be someone who said yes to this, but I disagree nowadays. But that's also with the caveat that I'm pretty sure this question is more about, oh my god, those people in Africa are uncivilized, like back in whenever this test came out. But I do think there are cultures that are unhealthy. Let's say it like that. Like the axioms in a society shape how people interact with each other in a society. And I think there's a way to rank them. The United States. Yeah, but actually the United States is a nice example where you don't get lambasted for questionable phrasings and stuff. Because in the United States, the concept of freedom over everything else is a thing of different cultures, but to what it leads is arguably something that, you know, is crippling to civilization. And in that sense, it's not savages. Like I said, this whole phrasing here is obviously dated, let's say. But I think to say that there's no aspects to which we can compare and rank cultures, I think is just naive. Those who are able to work and refuse the opportunity should not expect society support. Strongly disagree. Because, first of all, what classifies as being able to work? Someone with only one leg and who's depressed, who lost his leg, can't do manual labor, but you can still say, well, you should be sitting in front of a computer all day long. And if that person would not want to do that because of whatever reasons, I think this, or someone who would argue that that they agree with this stance, is under the assumptions that people do not want to work because they're just lazy, which is like never the case. The natural state of humans is to be active. There is no savages and civilized people, there's only different cultures. Yes. How am I so bad at this? Oh my god. Actually, the phrasing is just too strong. I'm going to disagree. But yeah, like the natural states of human being is activity, and is putting in work into something they care for. The issue is that what we call work nowadays, as in work in the open market, is usually not something that they actually care about. Alienation of the worker and all that jazz. But the fact that we as a society should not expect or should not support people who like find themselves in the struggle of like, there's nothing in the open market that that I want to work on because everything seems streaming and there's nothing that actually appeals to my drive for activity. I think that's just not how we should treat each other. So I put a disagree on that, and actually I might go even strongly disagree, because like anyone who says they don't want to work is not saying it just because they don't want to work. There is a reason behind it, because the people who say they don't want to work, they have other issues. They could be dependent on some substances. They could be depressed about the state they're working in, and they don't see a reason to work because stuff just never get better for them. There's so many levels to this, and not offering support is just saying, oh, you're just lazy. That's just not how human psychology works. And yeah, when you are troubled, it's better to not think about it, but to keep busy with more cheerful things. I somewhat disagree, because I think having good introspection is very helpful. On that note, obviously when it's overwhelming, it's better to take a step back, but that's not the same as what the sentence implies if just always just staying focused on something else. So I go with disagree. First generation immigrants can never be fully integrated within the new country. Strongly disagree. That's just horseshit. What's good for the most successful corporation is always ultimately good for all of us. Yeah, right. No broadcasting institution, however independent its content, should receive public funding. Strongly disagree. Like I said, Arte is a prime example of how public funding is a great thing for culture and information and like anything, honestly. And how you see the wider society. Our civil liberties are being excessively carved by the name of counterterrorism. Strongly agree. I mean, at the moment, not really. It's more not counterterrorism, but like, the war in Ukraine, or the LGBT terrorist boogeyman for the conservatives, I guess. But civil liberties are definitely being curbed. So that's always gonna be a struggle, as long as there is no more grassroots democracy and political involvement. A significant advantage of a one-party state is that otherwise all the other arguments that delay process in the political system. I even disagree, because even in a one-party state, it's not like the one party is a monolith. Like, Xi Jinping in China still has to convince every single person in the party to still support him. It's not like there is just the block of the CCP. It's just that it's hidden. And I think a democratic political system can be just as effective if it's done right and automate and done in smart ways and using technologies. And everything we have is like modern humans, right? So I strongly disagree. This advantage does not exist anymore. It used to exist back then. You only could write letters maybe, but not anymore. No way. Although the electronic age makes official surveillance easier, only wrongdoers need to be worried. This is interesting, because I disagree that only wrongdoers need to be worried. On the other hand, the people who cling to the anonymity for everything at every cost is something that I find a bit silly at at this point in my life, I guess. I think that was a point that I brought up when the discussions about the electronic identification for like pornographic websites or gambling and stuff came up, where I talked, all right, sure, I agree that we should minimize the amount of identifying information that needs to be transmitted. But if you want to have restrictions on what minors can access or who can vote digitally, there is going to be some element of information exchange that will be identifiable to you. Indirectly through statistical stuff, there is going to be that way. Is there any degree to which you would be okay with that? And there are so many people who said no. There is no degree ever, except for complete anonymity all the time, that they would be okay with. And I think that is not a stance that's feasible to uphold anymore in modern digital age, honestly. So, yeah, it's not that only wrongdoers need to be worried, and I wished that the people who are not doing anything wrong would be more willing to work towards something that is more stable than this nothing or over my dead body position that a lot of digital activists and I'm sure even in our party hold that position. So yeah, I still strongly agree though that strongly disagree that no, everyone should be worried about the information that they give out. But yeah, that's one aspect that I think I would point out. That death penalty should be an option for the more serious crimes. I disagree. Because I think, like, in some sense, I think the death penalty is too cruel, and in another way, I don't think it's too easy on the criminal. I'm generally someone who thinks if there is someone who you would think who has done such a horrible thing, they should get the death penalty, I would rather throw them in solitary confinement. Because I think someone who would be deserving of a death penalty is someone who is not even who's done something so abhorrent that we can't, like, the reason I don't think the death penalty is a just instrument of like legal punishments is because it's irreversible. You can say everything is irreversible around across the time, and that's true. But there's a difference between death and I don't know. What if they made an? I think they should get beheaded immediately, honestly. But yeah, I do not think the death penalty should be an option ever. I think it would be fine for someone to decide to go for the death penalty. Like, if they do not want the punishment they receive, they should get the option of getting a death penalty. And in that cases, I would want it to be as painless and stuff like as humane as possible. Which, after, like, when you look at stuff, honestly, when it comes to men, the best way to do that is literally the shotgun to the head or guillotine, which I find is very telling of how, like, the jural system of punishment of wrongdoers in society has drifted away from what it's supposed to be about. Because all of the, like in America especially, the diversion of the death penalty to from guillotine to hanging to lethal injection, electric chair, becoming always more, like, seemingly more humane, even though they are less. It's always about optics, which is just something I would want to fight against for this stance. That's an aspect that is true about a lot of the legal networks and things, how legal things work together, that it's more about Does it feel right? Like, oh, I don't want to see the person's head be chopped off. I don't want them to see their struggle by being hanged, or like hanging there like a sack of potatoes. We need something else that's more humane, and doing that, making it even worse every step of the way. Like, lethal injection is not a nice sleep. Electric chair is not a quick zap and it's over. It's horrid. It's awful. And even if it's more bloody and looks grim, like shooting by execution or whatever else is usually the way more humane way, which is counterintuitive to, I think, what many people think. Anyway, that's a nice topic, right? Oh boy. In a civilized society, one must always have people above to be obeyed and people below to the command. This sentence is wrong, but not because about the fact about people in different levels, but about the obeying and command aspect. That is the distinction that's wrong, I think. Maybe it's more humane for the criminal. What about me? I don't want to see the EU blood. I don't agree with wanting to put people on life just to punish them, though, because taxpayers will be paying for it and the retribution isn't a real gain for society. You know, in a society that I envision, I think every person living in that society is already living kind of on the taxpayers. Like, I genuinely think we are in a point in society where every person in a modern, wealthy state could live off contributions from everyone in society and still grow the capital and bring forward a growth in the nation by doing work that's not being forced onto them for survival, but just because they want to. Like I said, I think work is the normal human function of, or state of a human. People do not sit about and do nothing if they have everything. So that's why I don't think this counter argument to, oh, if we have prison for life, we would have the taxpayers. In an ideal society, that would be the true if they were in solitary confinement or if they weren't. Maybe to a different degree, but the amount that solitary confinement would be more is negligible, I think. Yes. Yeah, on the civil society, well, this, like, I'm not an anarchist in the sense of, like, we need to remove all hierarchies, and so you would think that I don't have an issue with that, but I do have an issue with the obeying and command aspect, because yes, there are gonna be hierarchies in society regardless of how idealistic you want to think about it. I think that's just something that is not even human nature, is like biological in nature. It's like every living being is building on some sort of hierarchy that they strive for to find a position in. The way is the effects of that hierarchy and the things that you get from being in a certain position in society do not have to be obeying and command. That's just not something that I agree with. Abstract art that doesn't represent anything shouldn't be considered art. I strongly disagree. That's just not how that works. In criminal justice, punishment should be more important than rehabilitation. Strongly disagree. It's a slider, of course, but like, punishment for punishment's sake is such a outdated way of looking at the justice system. Like, there is no metaphysical scale that needs to be made just by punishing someone who's done something bad. So yeah, rehabilitation and every other more productive principle in criminal justice is way more important. I think punishment is honestly the least important aspect, and should borderline be just thrown out as a thing. It's not about punishment. It's a waste of time to try to rehabilitate some criminals. That's a more agreeable position. Maybe the aspect where we... This is an interesting thing. Is it outdated? Like, I don't know. Let me read up on something real quick. Yes. So, in like when I was in school still, even we had some classes about I don't know what the English word is. What is it in English? It's theory of criminal justice. All right, but like there is some dimensions to it where you kind of ask, okay, what's the point of pursuing someone who did something bad in society? And so there is the like absolute kind of in German it's absolute Straftheorie, where you have like you want the perpetrator to show remorse. So, which is in Germany is called Sühne. Like you want to make them understand that what they did is bad. That is strictly different from Vergeltungstheorie, which is the basically the punishment, the retribution aspect of it. Of like, all right, you stole something, and even if you gave back the money, you think you did bad, you still need to be punished further, because you like brought some metaphysical equilibrium out of balance in some sense. So we need to do something back to you to counteract this. This is something that is intrinsically built into many legal systems, but it's outdated, and you can already hear when I try to explain it. It's building on metaphysics that have no fundamental like things you can actually point to, and so it's like a very divisive and hotly debated thing about in philosophy, but also legals and scholars and whatnot. But then there's also like the relative aspects of punishment, where it's about, all right, you did something bad, we can trust you to reoffend, so we take you out of society to prevent you from doing something further, which is like general prevention theory. And then there is also the thing, okay, we are sending a signal outwards, if you do something bad you will get punished, which is also not the same as just this metaphysical balance outdated thing. Yeah, exactly. That's the modern approach, but you know, the systems we live in are ancient, so there's a lot of this thinking of, okay, you need to be punished for punishment, being like, due to be changed. I invented that made sense once, but no longer does. No, it's in the sense outdated, in the sense that no one actually thinks along those, or no one who I would consider a modern thinking person would think along those ways. That's why it's outdated. The same way it's outdated to think about a eternal soul, for example. But yeah, like this about waste of time of rehabilitating some criminals. That's something that goes directly into the whole prevention stuff and future prevention security stuff. That is still completely within the realms of like sensible things to talk about, especially when it's about, you know, they use criminals here, but a lot of criminals, like, a criminal is not something inherently bad. It's a label we give them for having done something. But why they did it can have even honest reasons, and most of the time for someone who can't be rehabilitated, it usually means it's something like psychological, of like mental illness, of trauma that would never heal again, or something like this. And in that sense, it's a waste of time But in that case, it's about, you know, securing them from the rest of society so that they can't do more harm, which is still different from I'm taking away your freedom because you need to be punished. You know, those are very different ways of justifying an action. So yeah, I think this is an agreeable sentence, even though this is a very like, when to label someone as unrehabilitatable, I don't know how you would say that, is another question completely. But I do think there are people who just can't be reintroduced to society in a safe way. The business person and the manufacturer are more important than the writer and the artist. This is what I said earlier at the beginning of the thing about we should not undersell art and culture as a very, very important pillar in our society. So I disagree. I don't know, I would strongly disagree, because in the end I think I would still prefer to have bread rather than to have a book to read. Mothers may have careers, but their first duty should be their homemakers. I strongly disagree. That's independent of if you're the mother, father, or whatever gender, or part in the how do you say, parental role you fill in. Almost all politicians promise economic growth, but we would heed the warning of climate scientists that growth is determined. Yes, I mean, I don't think anyone in modern society would disagree. Almost all politicians promise economic growth, but we should heed the warnings of. Yes, strongly agree. Like I said, I think we really, really, really need to move towards a circular economy, which is where you need to have people be taxed more and the incentives of economic activity not be profit driven but like social value driven. If some sort, we need to find a way to make that happen. Making peace with the establishment is an important aspect of the Me Too. Strongly disagree. Like, weak spine losers say that maybe. Yes. If you got through that, okay, you will find these propositions. Religion, a breeze. Astrology actually plays many things. Sure, no. You cannot be more without being strongly disagree. Morality has nothing to do with religiousness or spirituality or anything else. Charities are better than a social security means of helping general no, fuck no. Charity is the bonus from being a good person. Our society should be built around the charitability. That does not mean that it's not needed, or that the social security is not needed. That's not how that works. Some people are naturally unlucky. I have no idea what this really means. I don't know how this question is political at all. But I mean, you know, you will have someone who only loses at coin flip. This is just not, like, what is this question doing, man? Sure, strongly agree. Yeah. It's important that my child's school is a, yes, fucking no. Religious values. I want people to learn about values. That does not mean instilling religious or any other, for that matter. Philosophical values, for example, would also not fall in this. I don't want them to instill values. I want them to make the kids learn how to pick and choose their values. And I would hope that if done right, there's gonna to be this, the kids will learn that yes, there are values too, are worth upholding. And usually those are not religious ones. Let's go through it again. Not that I clicked something wrong again. Disagree. 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 Some people don't. Okay. Last one. Sex outside of marriage is usually immoral. Disagree. Like, what is this? The same-sex couple in a stable relationship should not be excluded from the positive time. I strongly agree. Pornography, deception of consenting adults should be legal for the adult population. Sure. What goes on in a private bedroom between members of the state? Strongly agree. No one can feel naturally homosexual. Strongly disagree. These days, openness about sex has gone too far. Disagree. There's a thing to say about strongly disagree and disagree, because there is the tendency, like the whole aspect of sex sales and how sexualization is exploited for profit, also in pornography, which in this case I didn't consider, because I think consenting adults implicitly means that it's not coerced out of a profit reason or a profit motive. That's why I'm okay with that kind. Like if a couple likes to be exhibitionists, who cares? You know, they can do it, and even if they get money out of it. But the openness about sex is a difference about using sex as a sales point, as a way to market, as I think I just disagree. I mean, openness could be also just be about, you know, hey, there's more than just the heterosexual norm. So in that sense, I strongly disagree. And because it's ambiguous, I think I'd rather go on the safe side and just strongly disagree. Let's see where I stand. Who would have guessed? Who would have guessed I'm down here? I think no one is surprised by that. No one who knows me is surprised by that. Yeah. Who am I close to? North Korea, okay. Personalized certificate. Wow. Claim you're free. Get a printable certificate. Holy shit, check this out. Did it download it? Oh yeah, download started. Wow. Look at me. Zoham Mamdani and Bernie Sanders are on the same bot. That's interesting. That's crazy. Kim Jong-un. Oh boy. Isn't this fun? This picture is so fucking silly. Look at Macron being up there, it's crazy. Yeah, Mads, of course. Funny stuff. Wait. Yeah. Okay, 25 years. There's no way this test is only 25 years old. I don't know. I'm sure this test is like it's built upon some super old stuff. Anyway, what now? Any suggestions or questions to discuss and share and talk about or something? Dive into Swedish politics? What would you want me to learn about? Volt Sweden is the most powerful party. I don't think that's quite true yet. I'm sure you're working on it though. How long have I been live actually? 2 hours. I should have. I just noticed I never changed my title or added anything. I'm a professional streamer. All right. I think I'm done for today. I think. I assume it was deliberate. Honestly, no. I just completely forgot. I mean, it doesn't matter. Most of the people who are supposed to, or like who wanted to show up, can do that over the link that I posted, not by just searching on YouTube or Google. So it's probably fine. And honestly, I think for the first stream like this was perfectly acceptable, and 2.5 hours is probably more than enough. Yeah, so I think I'm done for now, and I will look into streaming either tomorrow again, but definitely more over the coming week, up until the GA. Actually, General, are you gonna go to the GA in Bratislava? Or are you just gonna watch from the stream? Okay, yeah, fair enough. Fair enough. Alright. But yeah, I think that's it for me for now, for today. Like I said, I'm gonna look up to set up more stuff, having chat on stream, having fancy schmancy shenanigans. And yeah. Thanks you for sitting by, listening to me yap about some stances, positions, and whatnot. And yeah, I'll see you again. Goodbye. How is an agreeable, I think. When it comes to have taxpayers. In an ideal society, that would be the true if they were in solitary confinement or if they weren't. Maybe to a different degree, but the amount that solitary confinement would be more is